was just asking if you have a favorite episode of Parks and Rec so far.
Well, I think, I think the show is brilliant. Mike runs it by himself now. My favorites are back from when I was co-running it with him, probably. I loved the Pawnee Zoo episode, the beginning one for season 2, that Norm wrote, and I loved the hunting trip, which I directed. That was really fun. So, but there's a bunch of great episodes recently. The show kind of gets better and better, and all the new cast, like Rob Lowe's, I consider new cast, but they're all great, and
Where do you see the show going?
Parks. As long as it's true to the characters and the tone, I'm not sure where this goes. I don't want to anticipate it. I'm kind of in the position of enjoying where he's taking it, and I don't know what'll happen. I'd like to see what happens to Ron, I guess, see what he does next, if he's going to stay in government or not. But they haven't been breaking that. I mean, at the beginning of next season, maybe I'll bring that up when we break stories, see if they run with that or not. But
was there any chance that Leslie could have lost the election when?
Yeah, there was. All of them were debated, but it seemed like kind of a downer and like a shrinking of story possibilities for her to have lost. So we didn't debate it for that long, but all possibilities were being talked about. Yeah.
And what are your current projects right now as well?
Well, my current project is to make you come back and interview me again, like in 10 years, because it'll just be ridiculous that all the stuff that I've done from now on is not covered in the interview.
That is the plan.
That's
so
the plan.
Don't worry, it's not locked. This isn't your locked
right.
story.
Well, I have two pilots that one of them just wrapped yesterday, the second one, and the first one a few days earlier. We're now in editing on both of them. One of them is Craig Robinson's show, and he obviously plays Daryl in The Office, and has a funk band called The Nasty Delicious, and also was a music teacher in Chicago before he was a stand-up. So this show follows like his life trying to balance being in a very rule-bound school situation with his, pretty kind of debauched nighttime life in a funk band. And then the other one, and that's written by Owen Alexson, who was a writer on The Office this year. And the other one was written by another Office writer named Robert Padnick, and is kind of the story of his dating misadventures in his 20s in downtown L.A., which is where he is now. And he has a remarkably complex social life for, what's essentially a kind of nerdy comedy writer, which I include myself in that category. But so those are the two shows, and we're, they're both, I guess, in contention for this season. I hope that at least one of them goes, so I get something to work on next year.
Well, the last few shows that you've done have been under the Deedle-D Productions banner. Can you talk about forming that and how you chose the name?
Okay. Well, Deedle-D is something that, like, I had a dream of a long time ago to have a company, and I talked about it with my wife, and the dream was for us to do it together, but she got to be too big. She's the president of programming at MTV now, and this would not be a good enough job for her. And plus, I think it would not be good for our family life if we worked together closely. But basically, it's my production company, so everything that I've done has been through Deedle-D. When you get to the, like as a showrunner, you have a production company. But there hasn't been employees until this year. And this year, I hired a very talented woman named Tracy Katsky Boomer to do development, and that's how these two shows came about. We had meetings, people would pitch, and we kind of tried to be more professional about it and make it like a little production company. And So this is the fruit of the first year of Deedle-Dee as being like a real production company and not just being a label for whatever I was up to.
How did you come up with the name?
I don't know. It was it's kind of a nonsense word. It didn't really have a lot of meaning. It's probably not the best name for a production company, but when I was in my 20s and I was dating my wife, I made a little electric pencil sharpener, and I painted Deedle-Dee Productions on it, and it was sort of like a combination of our last names, like DLD or something. I don't know. I don't exactly remember the exact circumstances, although I still have the pencil sharpener. And then,
Is that the logo that you painted?
No, that my kids did. Again, I haven't been incredibly professional about pursuing this until this year. And I probably should have a little bit more of a professional logo for the company. But, it's been, I think it'll be good. I don't know. It's different. It's like I know it's really fun to run a show. I know that. To be the person who is helping somebody else run a show or supervising someone run a show it's a different role, and it isn't as gratifying, but it's a lot less work. And, if you're going to have children like I do and try and participate a little bit, you have to alternate periods of intense workaholism with periods where you can find something where you're still working, but you're not, it's not like every night until midnight kind of thing. And this year, it was great to go back and run the final year of The Office. It was like my favorite ride in the amusement park, kind of, and I got a chance to go ride it one more time. But I've probably had dinner with my kids like once a month. I mean, it's, on the weekdays. It's a lot of work. So I'm looking forward to having Owen and Padnick, run these other shows, and I can go give them my opinions.
Are you pretty good about that? About letting, delegating?
It's hard.
Activity?
It's hard to delegate, because if you don't delegate, then they just sit back and you have to do everything. And then, it's really hard to only delegate when you want to. It doesn't really work that way. So, but I know that, I try, like when you're running a show, you have to teach. There's a lot of teaching involved, because you hire a writing staff and you have to download as quickly as possible your vision of the show so that their work is to the point and helpful. So the quicker you can kind of train people into a certain style, the more they're able to help you and reduce your workload. So there's a lot of teaching that goes on. And, I feel like the people who I've worked with, who you kind of get a groove with, then in a shorthand, then I'm able to have a bigger influence when I'm helping them run something, because we have like a shared vocabulary, and I can say, remember when we did this, don't do that, or, And then I like being in the editing room. Like I'm looking forward to editing these two things, because I've had an inordinate amount of time spent in editing rooms, probably 500 episodes, at least 500 episodes of TV I've edited. So, I feel like I can add value.
What's your process? Do you watch almost everything, or do you let a cut be made?
I used to, but I don't now. Now, I mean, I realize that's crazy. First of all, there's too much on The Office. There's like, each with 2 cameras and this much shooting. I mean, there's 80 hours. I don't know. There's a gigantic amount of footage. You couldn't possibly watch it all, and the editors are really good. So when you have a really good editor, you let them do their assembly and everything, and you only kind of go into the takes at specific moments. You don't try and watch everything. That's their job. And so I'll say, well, what are our choices for cameras or whatever. But the biggest thing is then the storytelling is how much we overshoot. And like I said, with the finale, I have to edit the finale. I have 82 minutes to pick from, and I have to get it down to 41 minutes. So I have to compress stuff and figure out what's not important to the story and toss it, reorganize it. And, it's a great game though.
You think you'll be going back to the network and
I am. I'm begging. I'm begging for some more time, but it's awkward because I probably need another 15 minutes, but it's it's an awkward amount of time.
Yeah, well, it was for Michael's departure too. Didn't you do something
yes,
similar?
Yes, they were very good about it. Mm-hmm. They gave me a little extra time for that. And when you think about Seinfeld, for example, the Seinfeld finale was an hour and 10 minutes, and so I'm looking for something similar. I'd like it if they could, because they did a NBC News piece that's going to run on the night of the finale about the show, and I think that if I could just use that as a buffer and say, let me get the exact right time for the finale, and then you can make up the difference with the NBC News piece. That would be ideal for me.
That's like it happened.
Yeah, I mean, there's I can't put off to the next episode anything. Like when you do a normal episode in the middle of the season and you don't get around to everything, you always go, well, we can either move that footage into a later episode or we can hit that story point later, but there's no later for this. So if I want to wrap it up, I really need to have it all happen in this episode. So I'm hoping that either it'll compress or I could get a little extra time.
There's been so much technological change between the time you started your career and now with broadband and the internet and all that. How has that impacted what you do? In terms of making extras and having to have a social media presence outside of whatever the production is that you're doing?
Well, I don't do anything with the social media. The actors do and the writers do. Like every writer on Parks and the Office has a Twitter account, and the actors doing a lot of that stuff. I personally don't do it, but I know it was helpful in promoting the show. And we were pretty early on The Office about putting up deleted scenes and having extras and, being on iTunes. And there was a lot of stuff that we did. And our audience is in general pretty kind of early adopters. They're kind of young urban audience that gets into this stuff early. But, ultimately, I think there's a lot of hype in terms of what that really means to what we're doing. And ultimately we're making something that you want to watch for some reason. And you either want to watch it because it's funny or because you care about the characters and they're going through something or whatever. And those are kind of fundamentals that I feel like haven't changed in many, many years. And there's a great book called Writing for Dough, which I like because I read all the books on writing. I felt like if I was going to read one, I better read all of them so I don't get trapped in any one person's point of view. But there's this one book that I liked. It was a guy who wrote for I forget what, Dick Van Dyke or something. But and his basic point was you have to engage people. The whole point of it is to either make them laugh or worried or suspenseful or something, and writing that doesn't do anything to you that doesn't have a place in the entertainment industry. And I don't know. So that to me is the fundamental, because it doesn't matter what the delivery system is if you're not interested in seeking it out. So I don't know. I feel like if I could just keep plying that area, that somebody else will figure out how to get the show to the consumer.
Okay, but things like webisodes and
yeah, we did webisodes. We were one of the first to do webisodes, and one of the things that's really easy for The Office is because the shooting style was so cheap and easy, because the lighting didn't have to be perfect and everything, and that we had such a large cast, and a lot of them didn't get enough screen time, and there was a large writing staff, and a lot of them didn't feel like they got their chance to be a director or whatever. So there was excess talent that you could use on webisodes, and it wouldn't throw out the production much. And I'm a huge fan of this mockumentary style. I think that everything should be this style. Personally, I love it.
And your next two, the
next two aren't. The next two are currently, the pilots are very traditionally shot things, and I had forgotten what that's like. I was on the set, and just to see them get these little pieces, and just a couple of cameras pointing and getting all different sizes of the same one angle, and how hard it is to I just kept saying, no, just zoom, don't wait for the next setup. Just go, push, do it, move, And it's very frustrating to go back to like the traditional thing. And I feel like you ought to just shoot movies with this handheld. You can remove the talking to camera if you want, but the rest of it is like a great easy style. And then it allows people to concentrate on the other stuff like the performance and the writing. So I don't know. Well, that's my pitch. I like to do movies in mockumentary style.
What advice would you give to aspiring writers today?
Well, I think the best thing for writers now is that, well, I guess the question is writers or like TV writers and stuff.
TV writers.
Yeah, because, TV, you can make TV now with YouTube and iPhones. And we recently I needed an establishing shot of a bar in Scranton that I wanted to use the real one. And in the previous years, we've sent a team from the NBC affiliate out with a camera crew to shoot establishing shots in Scranton. And I got a perfectly good establishing shot back. And I was like, oh, did they send the affiliate crew? And the producer said, no, the bar owner went out to the curb with his iPhone and shot the video and then emailed it to us like in the last half hour, and that's what's going on the air. So when you think of it that way, you can really make what looks like television it's possible to make it yourself now. So I would encourage aspiring people to not just, like when I did it was all about writing spec scripts and then hoping to get hired. But I think now you can do a lot of stuff on your own. And I would encourage people to do that. And then, if you get hired, great. If not, you try and sell ads to just replace the whole thing.
Have you ever hired anyone with them giving you a piece of video to watch?
As a writer? No, actually. Weird, right? I'll tell you, we hired somebody on Parks, Megan Amram, based on her Twitter jokes recently. But no, you're right. Everybody I've hired, it's always been traditionally, I get my spec script and I read it. So I guess gave you a bunch of bad advice. But I guess you have to do both, right? You have your spec script, and then you can also do other stuff.
But in terms of the writing itself, then what is the key to that?
Well, I think it has to do something. That's that writing for dough stuff. And then it's actually harder than you think to do A+ work. And like if you have a spec script or a pilot or whatever, and it's really A+, you will just immediately get hired, because every year there's only 2 or 3 people who have scripts that are really, really good. And what I think is the thing that trips up most people is that they write something and it's pretty good. It's like B+ homework, and they're impressed because it's like that's as good as an episode of that show. But the episodes of the show are, sometimes they're better than a spec script, but sometimes they have their own problems from, practical reasons. And you got to push yourself to do better than you think is good enough. It has to be so crazy good that you can't believe it, and everybody who reads it is really impressed. And then you don't have to worry about knowing anybody or anything. You just get a job. But if it's just like pretty good, you might think that the grade curve of scripts is like evenly distributed, but it's not. There's like 3 A+. When I read 100 to hire somebody, I might read 100 scripts to hire a staff, and there might be 3 A+, and then there's like 92 B+, and there's 3 Ds, and does that add up? No. 5 Ds. So the vast, vast majority of scripts are pretty good, of people who are trying to get work. So don't stop at pretty good. Like, be ruthless about going back and everything, every possible decision. Ask yourself, could this be funnier? Is this exactly what I want to say? Is this unique? Has this been done before? Am I repeating stuff that I remember? Or am I coming up with a new joke or whatever?
Good answer. And then our last question is, where do you see yourself in 10 years? I don't know. I really like what I'm doing. If The Office could have
if I could have another office-y situation in 10 years, I would be happy. If I could have another situation where I might maybe on cable, just so that I could have a life. You know, maybe something where it's only 13 episodes a year. That, or I just wait till my kids have left the nest, and then I'll do it more full time. I don't know. But I like doing this. I think it's great, and I feel like I've gotten pretty good at it, and you know, I would like to be able to continue. I kind of get excited about the individual project. Like when I'm not excited about a project, then I don't know what to do. But then when I get hooked onto some project, I get very excited, like it's a cause. Like I really felt like with The Office, like I got to bring this to America. This is great. You know, I wish everybody could see this and get into it. And I think I'm kind of hoping to find something else like that I really get hooked on.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen.